Good evening, my dear one. Settle in softly. Wrap yourself in the quiet of this moment. Tonight, I wish to tell you a story, a truly wonderful tale that unfolded in a world long ago, where Vikings lived on a wind-swept island named Berk, and dragons were not just creatures of legend, but a powerful, often misunderstood force of nature. This is the story of a young man named Hiccup and his incredible journey. Picture, if you will, the rugged island of Berk, constantly buffeted by storms and the frequent visits of magnificent yet troublesome dragons. For the people of Berk, known as Vikings, dragons were a challenge, a force to be resisted. Their lives were a cycle of repairing homes and defending their livestock from these winged creatures. Among them was a young man named Hiccup, who, unlike the other robust Vikings, was rather slender and thoughtful. His mind, however, was exceptionally bright, always inventing curious contraptions. His father was Stoic the Vast, the chief of their village, a man of immense strength and courage, who often worried about his son's gentle nature. Hiccup, you see, struggled to fit into the Viking way of life, where physical prowess was greatly admired. One evening, as the sky darkened, a dragon raid began, a familiar symphony of roars and the clash of shields. Hiccup, eager to prove himself, wheeled out his latest invention, a large, intricate bowler launcher. He aimed it towards the swirling chaos in the sky, hoping to fell a dragon, specifically the most elusive and mysterious of them all, the Night Fury, a creature rarely seen and even more rarely hit. With a hopeful tremor, he fired, and to his astonishment, he heard a distant cry and witnessed a shadow falling into the forest. He knew, deep in his heart, that he had struck the legendary Night Fury. But when he returned, no one believed him, not even his father, who simply wished for Hiccup to be safe. The next morning, driven by a quiet determination, Hiccup ventured into the misty forest. He followed the trail of broken trees until he found a hidden cove. There, nestled amongst the rocks, lay a magnificent, sleek black dragon, entangled in the ropes of his bowler. It was indeed a Night Fury. Its eyes, bright green and intelligent, watched him with a mix of fear and defiance. Hiccup, standing over the powerful creature with a small blade, found himself unable to strike. He saw not a monster, but a trapped being. Instead of ending its life, he carefully cut the ropes, freeing the dragon. The Night Fury, after a moment of wary observation, let out a piercing roar, and then, unable to fly, vanished into the depths of the cove, leaving Hiccup feeling a strange mixture of awe and relief. Hiccup returned to the cove many times. He observed the dragon, learning its habits. He discovered its problem. One of its tail fins, essential for flight, had been torn. The dragon was grounded. Slowly, carefully, Hiccup began to approach, offering a shared meal of fish, a gesture of peace. The dragon, cautious at first, eventually accepted, his initial hostility softening into curiosity. Hiccup began to sketch the dragon, and to his amazement, the dragon, using a fallen branch, mirrored his actions, drawing in the dirt. It was during one of these quiet moments that Hiccup, reaching out his hand slowly, dared to touch the dragon's snout. The night fury, after a moment of gentle hesitation, leaned into his touch, revealing a trust that melted Hiccup's heart. He affectionately named his new friend Toothless, for the way his sharp teeth retracted into his gums. With his inventive spirit, Hiccup designed a prosthetic tail fin, a marvel of leather and metal which he could attach to Toothless. However, the new fin required a co-pilot. Toothless could not control it alone. And so an extraordinary partnership began. Hiccup learned to ride Toothless, to guide the fin, and together they soared through the skies, their initial clumsy attempts turning into graceful dances among the clouds. Hiccup discovered the sheer joy of flight and the true nature of dragons, their playfulness, their curious habits, their surprising affections. Meanwhile, back in the village, Hiccup was enrolled in dragon training, a rite of passage for young Vikings. Guided by the one-armed, one-legged, but ever-cheery Gobber, Hiccup was meant to learn how to fight and defeat dragons. But with his newfound understanding of Toothless, Hiccup began to approach the training dragons differently. Instead of fighting them, he gently calmed them, observing their sensitive spots, their favorite foods, their quirks. He learned that dragons, much like any creature, responded to kindness and understanding. The other young Vikings, Astrid, a fierce and skilled warrior, Snotlout, boastful and strong, Fishlegs, knowledgeable but timid, and the mischievous twins, Roughnut and Toughnut, were bewildered by Hiccup's sudden success. He was no longer the awkward inventor, but a skilled, if unconventional, dragon tamer, impressing even the formidable Astrid. His father, Stoic, returned from a fruitless search for the dragon nest, surprised and proud of Hiccup's unexpected prowess in the arena. He believed his son was finally becoming the Viking he was meant to be. He began to plan Hiccup's final test, a grand moment where Hiccup would bravely slay a dragon in front of the entire village, symbolizing his transition into true Viking manhood. One day, Astrid, suspicious of Hiccup's sudden change, followed him to the cove and discovered his incredible secret. Toothless. Frightened and angry, she confronted Hiccup. But Hiccup, knowing he had to share the truth, convinced her to take a flight with them. As Toothless soared through the sunset-painted sky, performing breathtaking aerobatics, Astrid's fear slowly transformed into wonder. She saw the beauty and gentleness of Toothless, and understood the incredible bond between him and Hiccup. During their flight, Toothless led them beyond Berk, towards a terrifying sight. The dragons, instead of being free predators, were merely servants to an enormous, monstrous dragon known as the Red Death. This colossal creature demanded tribute, mountains of food, from the smaller dragons. If they failed to bring enough, they became its meal. It was a harrowing revelation. The dragons were not enemies, but enslaved beings, terrorized into raiding the Viking villages. Hiccup and Astrid rushed back to Berk, desperate to warn Stoic before he led his fleet to attack the nest. But Hiccup's words of a queen dragon, a monster far beyond their wildest imaginings, were met with disbelief. Stoic, seeing only Hiccup's bond with Toothless as a betrayal of their people, was heartbroken and angry. In a moment of terrible misunderstanding, he had Toothless captured and chained, intending to use the night fury to lead them directly to the dragon's nest. The Viking fleet set sail, with a captured Toothless unwillingly showing the way. Hiccup watched, his heart heavy with dread, knowing his father was sailing into a trap. He was meant to perform his final act in the arena, facing a monstrous nightmare. But instead of fighting, Hiccup bravely stepped forward, extending an open hand, trying to show the village the peaceful way, the way he had learned from Toothless. But just as he was about to prove his point, Stoic's ships found the nest. The ground rumbled, and the colossal Red Death awakened, emerging from the depths, a truly immense and fearsome creature. Panic erupted. The Viking fleet was in terrible danger. Hiccup, realizing the enormity of the threat, decided he had to act. With the help of Astrid and the other young Vikings, who had now come to understand Hiccup's truth, they mounted the training dragons from the arena. The very dragons they were taught to fight, they now rode as allies. They soared towards the nest, a small but determined group, ready to face the overwhelming power of the Red Death. Hiccup, reunited with Toothless, freed him from his chains, and together they devised a plan. The Red Death was too vast to attack head-on. Hiccup remembered its one weakness. It could not fly with its wings closed. With daring maneuvers and Toothless's incredible speed, they led the monstrous creature high into the sky, into a dramatic aerial ballet. Toothless, using his plasma blasts, finally managed to strike the Red Death's internal gases, causing a brilliant explosion that ended the reign of the giant beast. But in the fiery aftermath, Hiccup was caught in the blast. Toothless, with incredible loyalty, shielded him from the worst, carrying him safely away from the falling debris. When Hiccup awoke, he was back on Berk, his village safe, though forever changed. He looked down to find that he had lost a leg, a price for his courage, now replaced by a beautifully crafted wooden prosthetic, a mirror to Toothless's own artificial fin. The world on Berk had been transformed. Dragons, once feared enemies, were now understood and embraced as friends. They lived peacefully among the Vikings, adding their unique charm to the island. Hiccup, no longer an outsider, was a hero, respected for his wisdom and compassion. With his new leg, he walked with a gentle strength, a leader in a new era. And so he climbed onto Toothless's back once more. Together, The boy and his dragon, with their mirrored prosthetics, took to the skies, soaring over a peaceful berk, their hearts full of quiet joy. The sun set, painting the clouds in soft hues as they flew into the horizon, forever bound by their extraordinary friendship. Their journey reminds us that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting, but in understanding, and that even the most unexpected friendships can change an entire world. Now, my dear one, as the echoes of their flight fade into the gentle night, may you drift into your own dreams, filled with quiet adventures and peaceful skies. Rest deeply,